Welcome back to WCB Jazz Vinyl. Today's topic is a long overdue discussion on the deluxe edition of Dorothy Ashby's Afro-Harping. So I think this was put out just a couple of months ago. It took me a little bit to finally get a copy for reasons I'll talk about in just a second. But I was kind of blown away by this release, so I definitely wanted to make a video. So let's go ahead and dive in. As always, go ahead and hit like on this video. If this is your first time checking out my channel, please go ahead and hit subscribe. I promise there's lots of great content. And if you'd like, you can head over to Instagram and follow me. I'm at what_can_brown. All right, so again, this is the release. This is Dorothy Ashby's Afro-Harping, and again, it is the deluxe edition. So what makes it a deluxe edition? Well, they've included an additional LP of 8 session outtakes. And what's really interesting about these session outtakes is that each of the outtakes are actually longer than the versions that made the album. So in some cases, you're getting like double the length of the track because they have this outtake. And I think it's pretty cool. I think it's kind of ballsy because right now it feels like to me there's more energy around releasing some of these albums in the best possible way that they can be, but while also staying true to sort of the original item. And so, this definitely doesn't do that because it adds that additional disc, and it does have a gatefold cover. So I guess what else to say about this edition? Well, it was remastered from the original quarter-inch tapes by Alex Wharton at Abbey Road Studios. Incidentally, mine arrived slightly warped, and I have heard that that's a little bit of a problem with this release. But there do seem to be plenty of copies out there that don't have any warps whatsoever. And I will say that even though mine had a slight warp on disc 1, it actually doesn't impact play whatsoever. It's just something that I noticed and I wanted to call out. In terms of the process that they used for this, and I want to call this out because this is not the only edition. This is not the only attempt at remastering and releasing an edition of Afro-Harping, even just in the last say year or two. So I want to be clear about what this is compared to the other option. So apparently for this they used and this is like terminology that I don't fully understand, but in the liner notes they say that they used an analog valve and transistor processing using a 1973 EMI TG transfer console, a DW Fern VT7 vacuum tube stereo compressor, and a HUM look-ahead analog limiter. I don't know what that means, but it sounds to me like it's vintage. It sounds to me like it's all analog, and it sounds like there were tubes involved, and those things kind of sound pretty good to me. So they do have kind of a they seem to be quite proud of the process that they use for this particular reissue. And funnily enough, and there is a booklet that's included with this deluxe edition. The booklet calls this version superior to the original. And so I guess the question is it? Well, we're actually going to find out because I not only have this deluxe edition, I also have an original promo stereo copy right here, and I took the time to listen to that as well. And then I have the version that was included in the Vinyl Me Please Cadet box set, which is what this is. They all kind of look identical because the front of the covers are borderline identical. So why on earth in this economy would I have 3 copies of this album? Well, this latest, the deluxe edition, was actually a gift from a friend. He asked if I had the album. I said, yeah, I have the album. In fact, I have 2 copies of it. And he said, well, you haven't heard this version. So here we are, and I'm in a position to talk about all 3, but really, I do want to kind of focus more of my energy in this brief discussion on this latest edition, talk to you about how it sounds. But again, I will take note of some of the things that I noticed, I guess, when comparing these copies. All right, so if you don't know this album and have never heard it, go check out the opening track, which is Soul Vibrations. It's only 3 minutes and 15 seconds, so it's a relatively short track, but it is really exciting. It is such a great groove, and I think it's one of the reasons why this album is is so fantastic overall, is because it starts so strong. And my first impression when listening to this pivotal track on this particular edition is that it is really dynamic. It sounds really nice in this stereo format. I'd say that the bells and the drums in particular against Ashby's sort of echoing harp is really fantastic. And that energy and excitement that I think is established with the first song extends across the entire album. If you're looking for other tracks that I think are particular highlights, the second track, Games, is really good. The title track, Afro-Harping, which I believe appears is the first track on side B. And then certainly the cover of Freddie Hubbard's Little Sunflower, which had probably just appeared on one of his CTI albums. So those are some of the places I think for you to start. And incidentally, I said 3 minutes and 15 seconds for Soul Vibrations. Guess what? The alternate take of that is actually 4:26. So with the alternate take, you get some more of that greatness. But I think what sticks with me when listening to this album, again, reaction to this version, because this is the first version that I listened to, in a while, right? I started with the Deluxe. And what I thought was that the combination of percussion plus harp is what makes this album sound so great. It's a really, really warm sound, really dynamic. I think I already said that. Great sonic detail from all parties involved. And by the way, just who is on this album is a topic for debate because it isn't listed in the liner notes. The booklet that is included with the Deluxe edition does indicate a few folks who are probably in the lineup, as well as a few people who are definitely in the lineup, I believe. I think Charles Stepney is on this. Who else is, I'm trying to think off the top of my head who they call out, but yeah, it's a little bit obscured in terms of exactly who's on it. And I will say though that again the alternate takes, because there's some discussion in the studio, you actually do get an indication of who's there in the studio because you hear them talking, and you get in fact you get an interesting window into how much echo they used on Dorothy's harp, because she leans into the microphone, is speaking with the person in the booth, and her voice is echoing as well, so you can kind of tell, here's what it sounds. Here's that echo applied to the harp, and here it is applied to her voice. So I was, sort of, I'll call it blown away by this album when listening to the Deluxe edition. And it's clear that even independent of me then taking it to any other version and comparing it, that this is a fantastic sounding copy in and of itself. So how does this stack up to the Vinyl Me Please edition that was mastered by Bernie Grunman, and then certainly the original, which was recorded for Cadet by Doug Brand. So here's what I think. So the latest Deluxe edition of this music sounds warmer, and I said this sounds warm. That was one of my first impressions, but this sounds warmer than the Bernie Grunman edition. I think there's more separation of instruments, and because they are more distinct, because there's separation of instruments, more of the sonic detail I think is audible in this edition than in the Bernie Grunman edition. I personally think that Dorothy Ashby's harp sounds best here in this Deluxe edition, and I think that the echo that's used just seems even more complementary to the music than it does with the more, almost what I'll call mono-sounding Bernie Grunman version. Because, and I say that because there's not as much stereo. It's not that there isn't stereo separation. There's not as much separation, air around the instruments. I guess the question is, does the Grunman mastering sound bad? And I would say absolutely not. I think that version is fantastic. And I think if that's what you have because you forked over the money for that big Story of Cadet box set that Vinyl Me Please put this out in and didn't include it as an original, item, I think that you're set. I think you're set with that version. But I did think that some of the percussion was more muted in that edition, and sounded even a bit in the background on some of the tracks compared to harp and flute, which are more up front. And I think for all of those reasons, the Grunman edition was not my favorite. The Deluxe edition is better. Again, if you didn't fork over that money for that big box set, this is I think this is as great of an option as you could possibly hope for. All right. So what about that original? So just as kind of a point of reference here, this is what the promo label looked like. So whereas the standard issue would have been like kind of like a blue and white, they went with this kind of different toned label for the promo edition. And this is stereo, so I was comparing 3 stereo editions. But sonically, what I would say is that the original here is probably more in the middle of those other two pressings in terms of warmth. I think that the drums sound crisper, and maybe just that this recording is like hotter, if that makes sense. I think that the percussion sounds loud in this, and maybe this is because the percussion is so loud, and because it's coming from both channels. It's the most dense and I would say mono sounding of a recording compared to the other two, even though it's stereo. And I think that some of the percussion takes away even more of the spotlight from the harp compared to the other two. Now that being said, the original sounds phenomenal because the music is phenomenal, and I think that it has, if it stands out in any way, it feels like it has an intenseness or like a driving kind of factor to the music that the other versions don't exactly replicate. Otherwise, the bass on either of those modern versions sound significantly better, whereas the bass is like, I don't want to say it's not present at all, but it's very much muted on this original. And so as a result, it feels to me like there isn't as much depth to the music, which I guess what I'm talking about is simply, like low end, I suppose. Um, and the funny thing is, I'm actually surprised at how great this original sounds compared to the reissues, because I feel like a lot of times when I do these types of shootouts, I come to this conclusion very very quickly that, oh, the tone poet is better than the original because of these reasons. This kind of objective, or I mean it's all subjective anyway, but this idea that if what you're interested in is sonic detail and dynamics and sort of no noise floor and all these things, that the tone poet wins. And in this case, even though I do think that the deluxe edition sounds better than either of these versions, I really actually like this original, and I may even prefer it to the Bernie Grunman that was included in the Cadet box set. And that was a bit of a surprise, I think. I think for me. So this conclusion is probably going to please many, right? I think that when there is that kind of that new version that's not locked up in a box set and it's a reissue and it's done well, pleases a lot of people. Guess what? The price point for this is actually between $35 on Amazon and like $46 if you go more direct to the to the source in terms of buying this from Abbey Road Studios, or buying it from like Universal or Verve's website. I think it's closer to that $46 price point. Although who knows which discounts may apply here during December 2024. So I guess one other thing to point out that may be important, because it's a little bit of a caveat to me saying that it's the best version. I think that I've heard it just really is amazing. Unfortunately, the packaging doesn't quite live up to the Sonics, I think, in this case. And so even just by way of comparison, what I wanted to show you is a couple of things. So firstly, again, I showed you the cover here, and I did show you, I think, even if briefly, the gatefold. What they did though is, let's see if I can do this. What they did is they printed the liner notes on the inside here, right? So they replicated this. They kind of show you just a single, right? What one of the singles, or a couple of the singles from this album, and then we have kind of some of these nice pictures. But on the back is really lackluster, and for me, I think they could have done without the liner notes in here, and maybe more pictures or something else of interest, or even putting this stuff in here, and keep the liner notes on the back, because this back is atrocious. It looks terrible. And honestly, the paper quality of this is fairly flimsy as well. It's not quite. It's certainly no tone poet. It's not glossy, but it doesn't have to be glossy. It's just that relative to other things that are gatefolds, it feels a little bit lacking. As a point of comparison, the Cadet box set edition is really really nice. Like this version, they did so well. Like there's a better sort of clarity on the front. The materials a little bit sort of tactile quality. It's nice. You can tell that the cover construction on the back was done well, and they did a great job of replicating the liner notes and that format here. So can we really complain that there's more content in the gatefold? I mean, that's what we do here, right? So we are kind of complaining about that. I just think that Cadet did a really strong job, or I say Cadet, Vinyl Me Please did a really strong job with the construction of that box set. It's just really well done. But what we get with that gatefold is not just the gatefold and some of that additional content inside. There is this booklet as well, and I actually think that this booklet was done very well. There's a lot of great new content here that talks about some of the lore behind the recording and other recordings that Dorothy Ashby was doing leading up to this point. It's not a terribly long booklet, but there is a lot of text. And you know me, I love reading about that history, and so I do think that this booklet is a nice touch, and I'm glad that they included it. I'm just sorry that it was a little bit at the expense of sort of the beauty of the gatefold jacket. So that's kind of my thoughts on this album. Obviously, the question will remain: what am I going to do with 3 copies? And I haven't come to a conclusion on that. Of course, I'm not going to get rid of my original. We'll see what happens, perhaps. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this one. Let me know what you thought about this release in the comments. Maybe consider adding it to your holiday gift list. I'll probably tell you what, I'll include a link to both Amazon, as well as if you'd like to go direct and not support Amazon, that's cool too. I'll include a link to the Abbey Road Studio website, where I believe they're selling this as well. So look for that in the comments, or excuse me, the description. And yeah, that's it. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.